This is a simple animation to explain catalytic converters before we start to test them.
Manufacturers have continually refined engines and fuel systems over the years to ensure that the vehicles they produce can comply with ever-tightening emission standards. One of these refinements was the...
So we have a catalytic converter here. He's going to go into how this reduces emissions. We monitor the catalytic converter by using two O2 sensors, one in front and one behind. The one in front is called the upstream O2 sensor. The one behind is called the downstream O2 sensor. Or another way to look at it when you look at the scanners is this would be sensor 1 and then this would be sensor 2. So what we do when we monitor catalytic converters, we compare the signal of the upstream O2 sensor to the signal of the downstream O2 sensor. The downstream should be a little bit slower and a little bit more flat, and it should be higher in voltage than the front O2 sensor. When we go into catalytic converter testing, you will understand what I'm talking about.
The introduction of the catalytic converter in the vehicle's exhaust system. Despite sounding complex, catalytic converters are quite simple devices that contain a honeycomb structure coated with a catalyst such as platinum or palladium.
It also has rhodium and cerium, so it's not entirely correct, this animation. It has platinum, palladium, rhodium, and cerium inside. The cerium is a specific compound that stores oxygen that's required to burn the different emissions.
As harmful pollutants from the engine pass through the honeycombs.
So this is showing you oxides of nitrogen. So you have nitrogen coming down and you have two oxygen molecules. This is NOx, which is created by too much heat and pressure in the engine. NOx is a very bad gas.
Structure, they're chemically...
And then we have hydrocarbons, which is 8C. 8C is the kind of the black soot, but we teach 8C as unburned fuel. So whenever you have high 8C, that is fuel that's going in the exhaust and it's never been burned.
Altered into less harmful emissions before they ever leave the car's...
And then the last emissions is CO. This is partially burned fuel, and partially burned fuel is CO, or carbon monoxide. So we have 8C, CO, and NOx. By the way, you'll notice that you have a hydrogen with two oxygen. This is a water molecule, H2O. So a perfect combustion will produce H2O, which is water, and it will also create CO2. And you notice we have a carbon with two oxygen. So these are the good gases, H2O and CO2. Those are the gases that we consider good. The gases that are bad are HC, CO, and NOx.
Exhaust system. A defect as simple as a stuck-open thermostat, leaking fuel injector, or bad spark plug can increase the amount of unburned fuel entering the exhaust system, leading to the failure of the catalytic converter. The engine management system on your vehicle checks for conditions that can damage the catalyst and will alert you with a check engine light on the dashboard. A light that stays on may point to a problem that can slowly damage the catalytic converter. A flashing check engine light means that the engine is misfiring and that catalytic converter damage is taking place. If the light's flashing, you should have your vehicle serviced as soon as possible to prevent expensive damage.
All right, so we have our scanner. It's really hard to get a good image without a reflection. So I want to hit scanner right here. It's a Verus Edge, okay? And we're gonna wait for that to load up. And we're gonna go through just good fundamentals with a scanner. So I'm gonna look for a Hyundai. Now automatic ID, it's right on the edge. It's around 2005 to 2008 is where this might not work, but we're gonna try it. Otherwise we gotta enter our VIN number manually. I don't wanna do that. All right, so instead of doing the manual ID, we're going to try the automatic ID. And then it'll take a couple seconds and it'll tell us what the car is. So it's communicating with the car right now. And hopefully it'll tell us that's 2007 Honda Santa Fe 2.7 liter. Otherwise we gotta enter it. Yep, so 2007 Honda Santa Fe 2.7 liter V6. Yep, that's it. All right, so we're gonna cut the chase. We know we have a check engine light on. So I'm not gonna do a code scan because that's gonna scan all the computers on the car. I wanna go straight to engine because we're worried about smogs. And I'm gonna pull up my code right away. And let's see what the code is. Real simple. So we have a P0430, catalyst system efficiency below threshold. So what that means is on the exhaust we have catalytic converters that are not functioning. So the catalytic converter is monitored by O2 sensors. But before I do that, it's always good before you, so we know what the code is. Now before you ever clear the code, we want to go to generic functions over to the right, because under generic functions you're going to see freeze frame. And when you do freeze frame, it will tell you what the car was doing when the code was set. The standard rule for automotive is always check to see if you have what the car was doing when it set the code. So how fast it was going, how hot it was outside, and it just gives you all a good information to go by. So what am I going to do? I'm going to actually just take a picture of this with my phone. And I might need to scroll up a little bit to get all the information. And this is just a good reference for you to go to as part of the diagnosis because it tells you a lot of what the car was doing. Let me see if I can pick out a couple that are real simple to follow. Basic one would be like RPM. So intake air temperature sensor. So this is the air coming into the car. So it was 95 degrees outside. So we're in San Diego, so it was actually a pretty warm day. So that's good information. Let's see if we could get the throttle position. So accelerator position. So looks like 7.5%. Okay. Open loop or closed loop. This is really important. So this is telling you if you're in fuel control. The car was not in fuel control because it was an open loop. That is, especially with a monitor, that's really important to understand because now I might not be suspecting my catalytic converter. I might be suspecting my O2 sensors right here. And you'll see the O2 sensors, they were at 800, and so that's a rich mixture. And then this one was at 600, which is a more closer to a stoichiometric or good fuel ratio. So we're going to diagnose our O2 sensors, but first let's go do a before we do that, we're going to go back and we're going to do a readiness monitors. I want to see which one is failing. Okay, so there's an O2 monitor and there's also a catalytic converter monitor. The monitors are the self checks that that the computer does every time you start your car. So just like a regular computer, a car computer goes through self checks and it should say test complete. So what we're looking for, test complete, not supported, so that's the AC. But look at here, we have a O2 sensor heater circuit that was completed. So all O2 sensors have a heater circuit to get them to 500 degrees, and that one's working good. Misfires, we have no misfires. Components would be like your fuel injectors and your coil packs and all your, just any sensor. So that all passed. And then here's your cat. I don't see any incompletes here, or sorry, any failures. Do you, Mr. Lear?
No.
That's very interesting. But I have a code. So I have a code for the catalyst right here. Usually when you have a code, it will say not complete. Always check your freeze frame data and check your readiness monitors, so that way you have a good base to go by. We're gonna go check our catalytic converter now and verify it hasn't been hit by something. All right, so we're underneath the car right now. The car is still running. We're preconditioning the catalytic converters because we want them to get to operating temperature. But I have two cats. I have one in the front bank and one in the rear bank because this is a V6. So you have 3 cylinders this way, 3 cylinders this way, one cap for the front 3, one cap for the back 3. Also on our catalytic converters, we have O2 sensors right here. This is after the cat, so there's one O2 sensor here and there's another one way up on top, and it compares the reading of the top one with the bottom one. The top one should be switching in voltages real fast, where the bottom one needs to be a little slower, telling us our catalytic converter is working. All right, so I have a catalytic converter here, very similar to the one we have. This one is actually a bad cat, so let's go out to the sun. And we could do this exact test. I don't know if we could see it. You have to come on this side, Dory. There we go. And you can see inside there the honeycomb. And you see all that material that is missing in the center of the catalytic converter is why this cat failed, okay? So you could see all that little particles just starting to being removed. That's the rhodium, the platinum, the palladium, the serum. There's like 4 ingredients in there, all precious metals. And when that stuff starts to leave the catalytic converter, that's when these things fail. So we could actually look inside to diagnose a cat. We could also use a thermal imager, which is what we're going to use right now. Okay, so a thermal imager, you have fuel, you have exhaust coming into your cat, and then your cat burns any leftover fuel and then it leaves. So if it's burning leftover fuel, the catalytic converter should be hot. It should be hotter than the exhaust pipe and hotter than the exhaust manifold. This is a thermal imager right here, and we could put this up here and we could actually measure our catalytic converter as it comes in. So that's 431 degrees right there in the middle right here of the catalytic converter. 431 degrees right in the middle. 450 is the highest rating. Let's see at the exit right here. Exit, I have 470. So it went up like 30 degrees on the outlet. So this cat, based on the middle reading, the middle reading was roughly 430, about 430. The outlet reading is 475. Let's see what it is entering it. And if I put it up here, entering the cat, looks like about 420 entering. So 420 entering, 430 in the middle, or 450 in the middle, and then 470 as it leaves. So this is a good indication that it's burning something inside. So we know that. Let's check this one. And then this one will be kind of hard because it has an exhaust shield on it. So I'm trying to get a good reading, and with the heat shield and with the frame, I can't get a good reading on this with a thermal imager. So we need to go now to a better way to look at cats. This is one way. It's not the best way. The best way is to monitor the O2 sensors looking at our scanner. So let's go do that. So we're back at our scanner now, and we're going to monitor our O2 sensors. So I'm going to hit exit and hit exit. We already done our monitors. This is the generic function. Generic function over here is the back door going into the car computer. The front door would be everything else you see here, okay? Codes, clear codes, data. We want to go to data because we want to look at it from the manufacturer side of the front door side. Generic side is the way you enter when you smog a car. All right, so I want to just do common data, and I want to focus on our 4 O2 sensors. All right, so I have a bank 1 sensor 2, bank 2 sensor 2. These are the downstream O2 sensors. So that's good. Those are the 2 that we want to look at after the cat. But we also want to look at the O2 sensor in front of the cat. So you notice we have a bank 1, sensor 1, bank 2, sensor 1. These are in front of the cat. So here we go. We have, let's do these voltages. So our bank 1, sensor 1. Okay, and then I want bank 2, sensor 1, but I want millivolts. Bank 2, sensor 1. Okay. So though this is one side of the motor, this is the other. This is the fuel. That is really good switching. See how nice, and it should be one full scale. So the way it works is, when you get up to 800 volts, this is too much millivolts. This is too much fuel. When you get down to 200 volts, this is not enough fuel. So this is lean. This is rich. A good O2 sensor should switch from 450 millivolts, lean, rich, back to 450 volts. It should switch within 1/10 of a second. So in 1 second, you should have 10 oscillations switching between rich and lean, rich and lean. You could also look at it as this is 0.863 volts, this is 0.200 volts, or 200 millivolts, 800 millivolts. Okay? I don't like what I see here. Look at this. So this is a discrepancy right here. I got nice switching with the bank 1 sensor, but I got a gap right here with the bank 2 sensor. That could be enough to generate a code if it does it more repeatedly while driving. Let's look and see if we could find the rear O2 sensors. And we want millivolts. We want to look at O2 sensors in volts. And I don't see it here. So that is this one. Let's look here. So I have, oh, here we go. I have bank 1, sensor 2, millivolts. We need to find the other one. There it is, bank 2, sensor 2, millivolts. So we want this one, and we want this one. All right, so now I see something really wrong here. I have an O2 sensor stuck at 800 millivolts, not oscillating. Remember, this is after the cat, and here I have one oscillating. And if you look what it was happening when we compare bank 2, sensor 2 to where is it? Bank, this one should be bank 2 sensor. So these two will go together. Bank 2, bank 2. This is sensor 1 above the cat. This is sensor 2 below the cat. All right, so we have our propane. So we're going to add propane to our air cleaner. This is like a two-person job because I can't control the motor with my hand. So I'm going to add fuel until all of these go to full rich 800 millivolts, and then Mr. Lear is going to snap the throttle, and I'm going to take away, well, first I'm going to take away the fuel, and then Mr. Lear will snap the throttle when I tell him to, and then they will all go full lean. Okay, so this is propane. I can control it. So let's get started. Mr. Lear, you want to get in the car? And I'm going to gradually add the propane so I don't stall my motor until they all go flat. And just pumping it. I'm really controlling it. All right. They're starting to flatten out, and they're up at 800 millivolts. I see them 800 millivolts. I'm going to take away the fuel right now. Snap the throttle. And my front O2 sensor should switch first, with a delay going into my rear O2 sensors. So I'm going to go ahead and hit pause so we can see what happened here. So these two are connected and these two are connected. These two are the top air fuel ratio sensors. These two are after the catalytic converter. So what I did was I added the fuel. So when I added the fuel, this went rich, This went rich, but this was already rich. You know, see how it changed? So then I added fuel till they were all kind of rich, and then I took away the fuel, turned it off, and I told Mr. Lear to snap the throttle, and then you start to see that it went full lean. See that? It went full lean when he snapped the throttle. Okay?
So let's look at some good waveform patterns and bad waveform patterns using our O2 sensors, both in front and after the cat. So here we have a good example of what, as a mechanic, you're trying to find. You have a fast switching upstream O2 sensor, sensor 1, going from rich to lean, 0.2 volts to 0.8 volts, and back and forth with an average of maybe 0.5 volts. So that would be a good signal with your front O2 sensor. And then after it goes through the cat, you have your downstream O2 sensor, your sensor 2. And you'll notice the signal becomes very lazy in it, and it's going to be averaging about 0.6 to 0.7 volts. This indicates that your cat is working properly. And this is the kind of example you want to find. Now we switch to a bad example, and here you'll see the front O2 sensor is switching properly, rich lean, rich lean, rich lean, and then the exhaust continues through the three-way catalytic converter, which burns HC, CO, and NOx, and it also burns your oxygen. So what is left is really CO2 and water coming out your exhaust pipe, and the down O2 sensor, downstream O2 sensor, should see that there's a lack of oxygen. And that's why it should be a little rich and it should be a little lazy. In this example, we're seeing that the rear O2 sensor is matching the front O2 sensor. So the catalytic converter in this case is bad. This would be an example of an inefficient catalytic converter where the upstream O2 sensor signal matches the downstream O2 sensor signal. So now we go to a picture that represents the vehicle we're working on. Let's just say the top catalytic converter in this picture is our bank 1 and the bottom catalytic converter is our bank 2. The top is a good example. We have a fast switching upstream O2 sensor and a lazy flatline downstream O2 sensor. We don't know the voltages, but I would suggest that the rear O2 sensor is averaging 0.6 to 0.7, which is on the rich side because the cat should be using all your oxygen. The bottom bank 2 catalytic converter, we have an example of fast switching front upstream O2 sensor and also a fast switching downstream O2 sensor, and it's showing you that it has more of a lower voltage, which indicates that it's seeing oxygen. So if that rear O2 sensor, that downstream O2 sensor is seeing oxygen after the cat, then the cat is not using the oxygen to burn the CO, the HC, and the NOx properly for emission purposes. So bank 2, or the bottom example, needs to be replaced.
So we did the test again. We added a fuel. So here's our top air fuel ratio sensors. They went full rich. Our downstream O2 sensors, or our O2 sensors underneath the cat, which are our monitors, they went full rich, but they were already at full rich at 800 millivolts. Then I took away the fuel and Mr. Lear snapped the throttle, so that meant we commanded it to go full lean, and we went full lean. We should see a little delay, and we do. This one's sitting right at 1570 time-wise, 1570, and you'll look, we're a little delayed here. We're a little bit off of 150, and we're a little bit off of 150. What I really like about this graph, these two sensors are mirror images. And they did exactly what I wanted. The front O2 sensors went rich, then lean, then back to rich, and then started to oscillate again. And then the rear ones was a little bit delayed, A little bit flatline, went rich, and then did go to lean when I prompted to, but it was slower to get in the lean than the front O2 sensors. Okay, so we're monitoring our O2 sensors with our scanner, but we're manipulating it by adding fuel with the propane and then taking this away and snapping the throttle and adding air. So this is what you call an intrusive test. An intrusive test is when you manipulate the car to get a desired reading. So we're purposely manipulating how the car runs to see if we get the correct readings in response with our O2 sensors.